I thank that gentleman for his speech and to continue the debate. I call on the third speaker in proposition, Kim Hurst.
Mr. Speaker, members of this House, for the next 7 minutes I'm going to force you all to listen to this grating, raspy voice. But I'm going to do it for good reason. Because what came out in the first half of this debate was a slam dunk from opening government who proved that the state has a role to curtail freedom of speech when it harms the individual. And what we're going to look at in closing government today's debate is John Stuart Mill's second justification for where we curb freedom of speech. And that's when harm results to broader society. Because we say this debate takes place in a specific context. There's a reason why anorexia is rife in Tokyo, but not in rural Japan. And that's caused the proliferation of images of Callista Flockhart, Paris Hilton, Mary-Kate Olsen takes place in those situations. And on this side of the House, what we're going to tell you in the first prong of our extension is that the state intervenes to curb the culture of objectification and its most manifest form causes eating disorders, even though eating disorders themselves are illegal. And the second thing we're going to talk about is establish this nexus between anorexic pro-ano websites and the perpetuation of broader social harm. But let's quickly turn to what was the question of the opening half, and I'll give them credit, it was in fact 2 questions. First was, what is the harm to the individual? And the second was, are there any benefits that derive from these websites? First thing that the opposition leader told us was, well, there's not really any harm to the individual because these individuals have already been harmed in that they're already anorexic when they go to these websites. But first thing to contest that, to say that someone who suffers from anorexia is the manifestation of depression who is seeking control in their lives. And floating upon this website will give an incentive and inspiration for them to control their lives and the means of denying themselves food. It'll give them tools by which to perpetuate that behaviour. But even if we say, yeah, only already existing anorexics use it, we say there's no justification to perpetuate what is incredibly dangerous behaviour. Behaviour that threatens their ability to have children later on in life, behaviour that threatens their capacity to interact in society, and behaviour that ultimately threatens their lives. We say because it stimulates that culture where people encourage each other to be anorexic, because it gives you tools on how to be a successful anorexic and suppress your appetite, we don't stand for perpetuating that harm. The next thing they told us was that it was not that bad because it brought them out of social isolation, and there was a contest about the communicative nature of this disease. And this is the way this argument is slightly more nuanced. I raised it in the first point of information in this debate. What's pernicious about the internet and why this debate focuses on it specifically is because of the anonymous nature of the internet. And what anorexics are looking to do is hide their disorder and hide the problems that are visible to those around them. So it anonymously allows people to access that. But when they get to this website, that is where the social network comes in, and the very danger of having a group of young girls saying, congratulations on being thin, but guess what, I haven't eaten for 3 days and you haven't eaten for 2, encourages that cycle of behaviour. And it's that competition that is central to anorexia, when people define the success externally, and this is where our extension comes in, they define success by being thin because of the culture of objectification in which we live, and you can't allow those people access to a network that encourages that competition. The second question was, what are the benefits? First thing we heard, absolute rubbish. It allows psychiatrists to hack onto these websites and spy on their patients. Mr. Speaker, effectively what the opposition leader was saying was that the Wikipedia of anorexia is better than the Encyclopedia Britannica, that no longer to be in the last 50 years of medicine. We need psychiatrists to start trusting Wikipedia like we need our Department of Foreign Affairs to use a kind of Wikipedia article on Iraq rather than the Iraq study group. Absolute rubbish. The second point was, will returning anorexics come back? Firstly, we doubt that. Recovering anorexics often relapse. Most anorexics take 6 to 7 years to recover, and the major danger of their returning to these websites is not that they will help people, but that they will relapse, like many people with anorexia. The final thing to deal with the first half of this debate was that, well, it's no longer solitary, and that's the exact problem as I've already outlined. People who have anorexia are suffering from a form of depression, and it's manifested themselves in them attempting to control their lives by not eating. It's a cry for help, Mr. Speaker, when a woman starves herself so that her BMI falls below 16. It's attention-seeking behaviour, and what pro-ano websites do is they validate the belief that they need to be thin firstly. But secondly, they say, but you're not doing it as well as I am. You're not eating as well as I am. And that's the exact problem. And it's with that I move on to the extension of this debate, and I will take him out.
Okay, but we say that these people don't have a website to compete. They can compete against people in magazines. They can compete against people on the television. What against them is content.
That fits exactly into my extension of this debate. This is where we do, in fact, curb the culture of objectification in society, even though eating disorders themselves aren't elective. We say we regulate the porn industry so that women don't get dangerous notions about the way they have to sexually present themselves in order to be gratified. We say there are advertising standards because even though it's not illegal to be Callista Flockart, it's a dangerous social message to have Callista Flockart in lingerie ads, and that's why those advertising standards are revoked. Moreover, this last year, in fact, in Spain, we saw the introduction of BMI requirements because of the recognition that whilst it's not illegal to have a low BMI, it's incredibly socially dangerous and perpetuates that social norms. We say, and this will fit for all the Australians and British people in this room, that this year at Home and Away, we saw advertising standards, broadcasting standards imposed to say the way that you deal with anorexic and eating disorders in terms of popular culture needs to have a special social commentary given the nature of the disease. We say what particularly makes the internet special in this is its technology that's been introduced that exacerbates an existing problem. And despite the fact that anorexia is not illegal, the state must intervene to curb that culture of objectification that's making women conflate success with thinness. The final point of our extension in this debate is to look at what the broader social harms are. I've already established that the fact that this side of the House has pointed to all these other alternatives where women are already deriving these messages that they need to be thin, to be happy, isn't good enough in this debate. What we need to begin to do is to cut off access to those sources that encourage that behaviour, particularly networks where that competition is so central. Say the broader social harm in this debate derives from the fact that anorexia is pretty much exclusively a Western liberal disease. We don't see bandies of Ethiopians and Somalians suffering from anorexia, Mr. Speaker. We see bandies of English women, Australian women, American women and Canadian women suffering from anorexia. And we need to begin to curb that culture of objectification in order to stop that broader social harm that perpetuates the critical mass of women saying, I need to be thin to be happy. So because it's harmful to the individual and it's harmful to society, the state has a role to curb that, to help the individual, and also to curb that culture of objectification.